the outer perimeter of the small garden. The sun glinted off one of the windows, and he could hear a child crying inside. He hesitated about ringing the doorbell, worried it would disturb the already upset child. But Erica was unlikely to be trying to put the baby down for a nap when she was expecting Zachary. He pressed the doorbell and stood back slightly from the doorbell cam so that she would be able to see him clearly. There were almost immediate footsteps, and the door opened, not long enough for her to have looked at the camera, and maybe that was a good thing, since even freshly shaven and cleaned up, Zachary still looked a little like the homeless guy she would cross to the other side of the street to avoid. His dark, closely shaved hair was easy to maintain, and might have made him an imposing figure if he weren't so thin and no taller than she was. The woman who answered the door was in her late 20s or early 30s, old enough not to be called a kid, appearing confident and self-possessed. She was wearing worn jeans and a pink shirt that set off her dark brown eyes and hair nicely. "You must be Mr. Goldman," she said, bouncing the little girl on her hip and giving him a once-over. "Zachary, please. No need for formality." She nodded her agreement. "Erica," she said, confirming her identity. She gave a little bounce on her hip and looked down at the toddler, with wispy white hair, red cheeks, and wide eyes. "And this is Mirabel." The little girl appeared to be a little over a year old, maybe 15 months. Pudgy legs peeked out from under a flowered sundress, and tear tracks streaked her face. A bubble of snot hung below one nostril. "Hi, Mirabel," Zachary said, using his soft voice, and not getting any closer to her. Mirabel turned away from him and pressed her face into Erica, wiping her eyes and nose on the woman's sleeve for good measure. Erica inspected her dirty shirt, her dirtied sleeve, and shook her head. "Come in, please." She held the door open wider, and Zachary entered. Erica ushered him into the living room, and they sat down. She sat on a chair and motioned Zachary to the couch. "Thanks for coming to see me," she said. "It isn't easy for me to get out with this one. Here, she can play with her toys once she gets bored, and I don't have to entertain her or worry about her disturbing anyone else." "Sure," Zachary agreed. "No problem." He preferred to meet clients in a neutral location initially, a coffee shop or other public location, where he could get a look at them and not be worried that he'd be ambushed by a cheating spouse he'd caught or a felon he'd put behind bars. The fact that Erica was a woman did not eliminate that danger. Someone with evil in his dark heart could easily prevail upon a girlfriend or acquaintance to call Zachary to avoid revealing his identity or intentions until it was too late. And of course a woman could be violent, a fact that Zachary had learned early in life. But Zachary was comfortable in Erica's home. He didn't see anything out of place or any sign of danger. Of course he'd been wrong before, but he didn't think he was this time. "So, how can Goldman Investigations help you? You said on the phone that it was something to do with your sister?" "Yes, Karen, my younger sister." "Mommy," Mirabel said, tugging on her sleeve. "And Mirabel's mother," Karen finished, nodding to her again. "Oh, I assumed she was yours." "I've probably taken care of her more than Karen has, so—" Erica trailed off. Zachary had already started to build a mental profile for Karen with the little he knew. A young woman with a child, maybe a teen mom, irresponsible, partying, not wanting to be tied down to the child she'd borne out of wedlock, and now she was missing. "Why don't you tell me about Karen, and why you're concerned?" Erica cuddled Mirabel and kissed the top of her head of fine blonde hair. "Karen is an addict. She first started using in high school, or maybe junior high. She's been in and out of trouble ever since. She's been in rehab or other facilities 6 times. I can't keep track of them all. Last time was while she was pregnant with Mirabel. She wanted to give Belle a good start. It was the first time she'd showed any interest in getting clean and changing her lifestyle." Zachary nodded his encouragement. "She's been this rebellious party girl ever since we were kids, never taking anything seriously, unconcerned about what she was doing to her body or where she might end up. You only live once. She was determined to get all the fun out of life while she could. Only her idea of fun wasn't the same as mine." Erica was the older sister, probably the firstborn, a rigid rule follower, responsible, high achiever, a second mother to her wayward sister, probably covering for her as well as trying to convince her to mend her ways. Karen hadn't wanted any of it. But things changed when she found out she was pregnant with Mirabel, It was the first time I think she ever thought about the future, about what she wanted to be when she grew up, that she could be a mother, an adult responsible for another life, that she could have a future. Mirabel decided she'd had enough of sitting quietly in her auntie's lap. She climbed down and crawled across the floor to a basket of toys, which she promptly tipped over, spilling out the toys. I think she was afraid of failing, afraid that if she ever put an effort into something and didn't succeed, that would prove she was a loser. If she was the perpetual party girl, not trying to be anything, she didn't have to worry about failing, just having fun. But then she got pregnant. When she got pregnant, she knew that if she was going to be a good mom, she needed to get clean, find a job, a way to take care of herself and a baby. And how did that go? Zachary already knew from Erica's comment that she had taken care of Mirabel more than Karen had. It had not been a smooth ride. "She's really been trying," Erica acknowledged. "She went into rehab, and they helped her to get clean. But it was the first time she'd been sober since she was a teenager. She didn't have any tools in her toolbox." Mirabel was not born addicted, and there were no early signs that she had FAS or any other disabilities from early exposure to drugs and alcohol. Thank heavens for that. Trying to support my sister and take care of her drug-addicted, disabled daughter would have been more than I could handle. They both watched Mirabel play for a minute. Zachary could not see any developmental issues. She seemed like a normal toddler. She was curious and focused, and used the toys appropriately rather than just sitting and screaming and smashing them in anger and frustration. Good for Karen. Good for Erica. "Mirabel brought you closer together," he suggested. "Yeah, she really did. I don't know how I would have related to Karen without her. Our conversations before that were always about how bad Karen was being, and how it was hurting Mom and Dad. Why couldn't she be responsible? Why couldn't she see how much she was affecting everyone else around her? Couldn't she see that she was never going to get anywhere in life? But with a baby on the way, we had something else to focus on. How she could be a mom, how she could keep the baby safe and provide a good life for her, how I could help her, help them." "How long did she stay clean?" "Almost a year. Then I started to see the signs. I knew she was using again, even though she denied it and tried to hide it. Then I got a call from the place that she'd been picked up, high as a kite, and they were looking for someone to take care of Mirabel. She already had a caseworker, Mrs. Kennard, and she knew I was set up to care for Belle. So they did a kinship placement and brought her to me." "You must have been pretty disappointed." "Yeah, it was hard. I knew Karen was trying, so I didn't blame her. Not like I did when we were kids and she was just all about partying. I knew it was the addiction. We were both going to meetings, her to AA and NA and me to family support groups. I knew she would need to get her head straight and get back on track. I couldn't give her any excuses or help her to get out of the charges. She needed to take the consequences and recommit." "So you took Mirabel until Karen could get clean again." "And she did?" 30 days the first time, then a relapse. Getting clean again, lasting longer, using more resources, getting more help, building her community. Then another. She got into the program at Turning Trail Recovery Center. They have a 3-month program. She was doing really well and was ready to come home. Zachary nodded. "And then?" "And then she disappeared."